Good evening, Ashlam. Welcome to this episode here, excuse me, of the Watchdog. I am your host, C.Jay Cox, and this is April 17th, 2019. We are, of course, living in the most insane timeline concocted, so, yeah, not much of an introduction that needs to be going into there. Strange times to be alive is basically what I'm saying. I don't really have much to comment on, but it's just, I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about, going through high school and things like that, and like the signs of this to come that sometimes I kind of knew were there, sometimes I kind of didn't. You don't really know until you look back on some other things, but nonetheless, it's all very interesting. Got a lot of interesting things I want to talk about here today. The first thing we're going to get into is Alexandria Occasional Cortex, as they like to call her. I think Mark Dice came up with that, if I'm not mistaken. So she says there's just so much things that you need to impeach President Trump on, right? Then somebody asks her for specifics, and they didn't show what her answer for number 1 was, but they tried to show here for 2 and 3, so I just want to go ahead and have you guys listen to this video real quick, just one moment.
Reach in a bag and pull so many things out that are impeachable of this president. I support impeaching this president. 2 and 3? 2 and 3. I think 2 would be tax fraud. And number 3, there's just so much. Let me ask you. The census, there's, I can't even, the tax bill, it's like, there's just so much.
So, obviously, very interesting, very noteworthy, right, when you consider the fact that basically Alexandria is saying that she has absolutely no idea, right? The first thing that we hear her say there, which is actually, to be fair, thing number 2, right? She says tax fraud. I don't think that there's any evidence so far that Donald Trump has committed any tax fraud. If anybody does have some evidence, I definitely would like to hear it. But that seems like just, another one of these, I'm going to reach down in the leftist hat and pull out something to throw at the president kind of things, which they, of course, do to everybody. It's not just the president. They do it to Senator Cruz. They do it to Senator Paul. They do it to Tucker Carlson. They do it to people who are even on the left, like Joe Rogan and Dave Rubin, for crying out loud, saying that they're all right and such. Excuse me. But, so that was the first thing, the tax fraud, and then she says the tax bill. I guess there's just something impeachable about lowering people's taxes. I don't know. That seems like a very odd argument to make, in my opinion. And then she had this, whatever number 1 is, I'm not entirely sure, but she had this, she said the census. I have no clue what she's even referring to when she says the census. Maybe I'm the ignorant one here, or maybe she's just pulling stuff out of the hat again. I'm not entirely sure. I think the thing that is most noteworthy in this whole situation is she's saying, oh, there's so much to impeach this president on, and then you get, ask her the question. It's, I think, possibly this tax fraud, which he hasn't actually been charged or even really accused of, but, it's something that we want to, I don't know. It's just ridiculous, and she just babbles on and on and on and on with it, you know what I mean? The reason I think it's noteworthy is primarily because this woman has got a significant amount of support amongst both millennials and just the Democratic Party generally. You're starting to see some of that dialed back a little bit. Obviously, people were not a big fan of her involvement in Amazon trying to get I think it was a warehouse that they wanted to open up in her district over there in New York. And then, of course, she said that they weren't going to allow that because big business and all this other kind of stuff. And then you've obviously had the problems with campaign fraud, right, with her. To be honest, I can't say for a fact what is going on there because I'm not 100% sure what is going on there. Unfortunately for her, you don't really have to be sure for the public to go against you, right? And I would like to say just we should probably hold off on that for a little bit. We don't know for a fact if she's committed any campaign fraud. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was like her boyfriend or something like that ended up taking like $1 million of campaign donations for himself. I could be misinformed on that. I want to see the evidence come in first. I don't think we have enough evidence for that, although there is like 4 counts of campaign violation. They are just, they're just that at the moment, just accusations, right? So, but with that, you are starting to see people some people turn against her a little bit, but not much. And I'd like to remind people, she had like 76%, I think was the number, of Democrats said that they would vote for her for president. There was even articles from like Huffington Post and Certainly Not News and things like that that were saying that she should actually be able to run for president now, right? Because she is, I don't know, I guess we just should disregard everything that the founders originally intended, which is something that's becoming increasingly popular amongst the Democrats, I'd just like to point out. Obviously, the Republicans have always been, their fair share of corrupt. Don't think that I'm letting them off the hook, but the Democratic platform has obviously included getting rid of the Electoral College and stacking the Supreme Court, right, and etc. But more to the point, right, they wanted to kind of lower I remember reading these articles, pretty sure Huffington Post was the main one pushing it. They wanted to lower the presidential age, saying that it was ageist and all that kind of stuff, and it was ridiculous. And the main reason was to actually get Ocasio-Cortez to be able to run for president. I have actually said on this show, and will say again, that I'm pretty sure Ocasio-Cortez will be the first female president. That is not what I want. That is what I think will happen. Okay, and there is a vast difference. I hope people will notice that, because there's going to be a lot of people out there who are possibly thinking, I think that, maybe you're insane, or you're advocating somebody who's insane or something like that. You know how people like to take words out of context. I am not saying that I want her to be the first female president, or president at all for that matter. I am just firmly convinced she will be, because she's incredibly popular. She knows how to use social media, and quite frankly, the populace of the United States is slowly losing its mind. Okay, the right has already kind of gone with the person who was their crazy, right, which was Donald Trump. The left is going to be giving theirs here a shot any moment now, right? I don't think it'll be Sanders, because I don't even actually think Sanders is going to win the nomination. I still think Joe Biden will win the nomination of the Democratic Party. Either way, I don't think either of them defeats Trump. But in 2028, if we have, or 2024 rather, if we have, somebody, I don't know if Ocasio-Cortez actually can even run in 2024. She might have to wait until 2028. But nonetheless, you see the point that I'm trying to make. She has a lot of support. Her policies have a lot of support. She's a lot of support in places that have high population, like California and New York and Illinois and things like that. She was born in 1989. So, she would be turning 30 this year. She could run in 2024. So, that's an incredibly threatening thing in my opinion. Okay, and I think that she might, and I think that she will win if she ends up deciding that is the course she wants to go down. So, despite all of the nonsense, right, I do show you this a little bit to show how ridiculous Ocasio-Cortez is, but the main reason that I want to show you how ridiculous she is because she is actually politically a threat. Okay, she is somebody who has much more likability than Bernie Sanders. She's much more intersectional, right? Obviously, she's 29 as opposed to 100 and something. Obviously, I'm being facetious, but legitimately, right? Bernie Sanders is like 79-something years old. He's incredibly old. Ocasio-Cortez is 29. She's very much more appealing to the general demographic. She's also Hispanic, which, of course, is appealing to the intersectionality that the left likes. She's also a woman, which is also appealing to the intersectionality the left likes. On the flip side, Bernie Sanders is somebody who's Jewish, which is not particularly intersectional. He's white. He is obviously rich. He is obviously, like I said, old. He's a male, right? It just doesn't bode well for him as opposed to her. So that's all I got to say about Ocasio-Cortez, but I'm just pointing out that I think she is much more of a threat than people think, and that we should not take her lightly just because she's a stupid person. In fact, that is all the more reason we should not take her lightly, because she will have more power than she does at some point. Maybe it's not president. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it's governor. Maybe it's senator, right? Maybe it's a vice president or a position in cabinet. But she will have more power than a representative. I guarantee it. Maybe it's even like Ron Paul did, right? Where it was like it's power in that you have a very zealous demographic that supports you quite often, right? But anyways. So yesterday, or 2 days ago, I don't know when exactly it was. I'm going to have to, hang on, Don't quote me on that. I think I'm wrong about that. It's sometime this last week, Notre Dame was... Ooh. Sorry about that. People just like to pop up with ads whenever I go into these things. But at any rate... sorry, there's a problem here with not letting me use this particular article. So, Islam's third holiest mosque burns on the same day as Notre Dame. Now, the thing I was saying here was that Notre Dame had recently caught fire. Notre Dame is a very famous Catholic church in Paris, France. Most famous, of course, for the Hunchback of Notre Dame story. Also, you have the fact that what we commonly call Notre Dame, although it is technically Notre Dame, is a university, a Catholic university here in the United States. And, of course, there's numerous other instances of popularity, basically just instances of popularity in, man, that does not say that right. I don't know why my English is so messed up on that. Instances of, or examples of the popularity of Notre Dame. Sorry about that. That was a weird tongue tie. Anyways, but nonetheless, it caught fire yesterday. It was not destroyed. The structure of it was maintained. I believe a lot of the library was destroyed. There was the cross, the gold cross in the center, actually was maintained as well. For the most part, it seems like everything is going to be okay as far as it's concerned. They obviously lost a lot of information in the burning of the library. The spire was destroyed, but they are going to rebuild, and it does seem to be slightly, I don't know, unifying, I guess is the word for the French people, which is something they definitely need at this moment. I don't necessarily know if that's a good thing. I don't know. It's hard to say, just because, you know, on one end you don't want the nation to devolve into chaos, and on another end you do kind of wonder if maybe the establishment in Europe, you know, we talk about how bad the establishment is here, but it's really not that bad when you consider how bad it can get. And France and Great Britain are perfect examples of that. But nonetheless, Islam's third holiest mosque was burning on the exact same night. Now, for those of you who are unaware, the third holiest mosque in Islam is the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, which of course is in Israel. It is on the holiest site in Judaism, in the Temple Mount. A lot of people have made the claim that it is there illegitimately. I would also say it's there illegitimately. It's basically just an attempt to say, hey, we're Islam and we got the biggest wang on the block, right? You actually will notice, if you look at it, not only is it on the holiest site in Judaism's history, but it is also higher in elevation than the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The whole thing is basically just a big giant FU to Christians and Jews. But nonetheless, you know, it was also burning at the same time. This is an article here from The Sun. Liam Deacon is writing it. And it says, like I said, Islam's third holiest mosque burns on the same night as Notre Dame. So, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in the world for Muslims, and holiest site in the world for Jews, although they're not allowed to pray on there anymore because of really stupid Israeli laws. Anyways, was ablaze at the same time as an inferno gripped the Notre Dame Cathedral. The fire in Jerusalem's Old Town broke out at the same tragic night as of Europe's most famous Christian site, also burning in France. Footage of the incident shows smoke filling the screen as bright flame flicker and people cry out in surprise. Parisians were also shaken last night as the inferno... Parisians, that's an interesting term. Were also shaken last night as the inferno tore apart the iconic structure, with the spire collapsing into the abyss of the flames. Fortunately, the mosque fire did not cause major damage to the iconic structure, but it did endanger a part that is over 2,000 years old. Initial reports suggested the incident was caused by an electrical fault, but others claim playing children could be responsible. That'd be interesting. The blaze was contained to Marwani Prayer Room, also known as Solomon's Stables, and did not spread, the Wafa news agency reports. The historic room is thought to have been built by King Herod, who is said to have been the king of Judea when Jesus was born. The mosque was built on top of the Temple Mount, known as Haram esh-Sharif in Islam, and also contains the Dome of the Rock. Muslims believe that Muhammad was transported from the sacred mosque to Mecca, in Mecca, to Al-Aqsa, which of course is not possible because Al-Aqsa was built almost 100 years after he died, but whatever. And by the way, Muslim history admits that with Ibn Malik is the one who is the sultan. I think it's a Umayyad sultan, if I'm not mistaken, or Umayyad caliph. Sorry, who actually builds the Al-Aqsa Mosque. But whatever, that's perfectly fine, right? I guess, you know, he was transported to a place that didn't exist yet. This is not a religious show. This is a political show. Nearby are historical sites significant in Judaism and Christianity, including the Second Temple, the holiest site in Jerusalem, or in Judaism, rather. Nearby historical sites. It's literally, the Dome of the Rock is on the Temple Mount. The area has heavy security and has been at the center of much ongoing Palestinian-Israeli conflict. The Palestine News Agency reported that Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas expressed his office expressed its deep regret Monday over the fire that broke out at the historic Notre Dame Cathedral in the center of the French capital in Paris, which caused the collapse of the cathedral tower. End quote. The outlet added that the presidency confirmed its solidarity and sympathy with our friends in France over this incident. So, just noteworthy. Is it significant? Maybe. Is it not significant? Maybe. I don't know. Initially, the claim was that the cathedral was lit on fire by people who were going around burning churches, which were obviously, of course, Muslim terrorists. Now, they are currently saying that that is not the case. Obviously, we will wait for more evidence to come out, but as of this time, it does definitely seem like that is not the case. I don't know. My personal opinion is just that it's kind of hard to trust the mainstream news in this not in this organization. Sorry, that didn't make sense. In this time, because they don't tend to be honest when it comes to Islamic terrorism, right? They don't like to use the words Islamic terrorism or Islamism or Islamofascism or anything like that, right? They don't like to go out of their way to label a certain subset of the population, i.e. Muslims, as more likely to commit acts of terror, even though it's patently true, right? So, obviously, if the evidence is that way, then the evidence is that way. It's not like we want it to be an Islamic terrorist. I'm just saying wait a little bit for more evidence to come out. It's just my opinion. As for the one in, what was that? Jerusalem. Sorry, we have another one of these things. They keep telling me, oh, do you want to use this, you know, I don't know. Basically, if you go on these websites, they ask you if they can give your information to third parties, and it's ridiculous now. I think that's something that's new. Never used to have to deal with that before, but I don't understand why that's legal in the first place. Anyways, as for the Jerusalem one, there doesn't seem to be much of a event happening there, right? It seems as if that was just no harm, no foul. Obviously, if it was harm and foul, then we will definitely let you know on that as well. Now we go to Express, where it says, Cophenhagen riots, violent protest after anti-Islam campaigner throws Quran in the air. This is written by Rachel Russell from Express. At least 23 people were arrested in connection with violent riots that broke out when a far-right anti-Islam activist threw a copy of the Quran in the air. Sorry about that. Police threw tear gas after missiles were thrown at them when the unrest spread on Sunday to several parts of Copenhagen, Denmark. Rasmus Paludan, the founder of the anti-immigrant party Hardline, held a demonstration calling for Islam to be banned from Denmark. He had thrown the holy book more than once in, where does it say? Nørrebro, which is an anti-immigrant area in the capital. Let me just take some time out here to say that that is not okay, in my opinion. I don't think you should be banning people's religions. The idea that you need to ban a certain religion because it is not appealing to you is completely ridiculous and patently absurd, in my opinion. Would be the best word to go. And as a matter of fact, it sounds an awful lot like these leftists that we seem to not be able to get rid of in both Europe and the United States. You know, going out of your way to ban ideologies and books and whatnot. Police threw... No, I just read that. Sorry. Prime Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen... That's not written correctly. It says Prime Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen, he condemned Mr. Paludan's meaningless actions. Whatever, fine. He said on Twitter, quote, "I strongly disagree with Paladin's meaninglessness provocations that have no other purpose than to sow disunity. Meet him with arguments, not violence. Protect democracy and freedom of expression. Do not let derogatory actions directed at specific groups in Denmark destroy our unity." Mr. Paladin had cobblestones thrown at him by counter-protesters before police then took him away. He was not injured in this violence, or in the violence rather, according to Danish broadcaster TV2. Dustbins and bicycles were also set on fire as the riots spread to other areas in Copenhagen. Now, this is not okay on a lot of different sides here, right? So first off, I think that this Paladin, sorry, Mr. Paladin, I don't understand how you could possibly say you want to defend things like freedom and also say that you are a fan of banning the Quran. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. I think that is just ridiculous. It's undemocratic. It's un-Republican in both of those forms of government. It is certainly, most definitely, not libertarian or constitutional or free or anything like that. Whatever, I don't know, whatever word you'd like to call it. Obviously, your constitution's probably not the same as my constitution. If you guys have a constitution, I'm not entirely sure how Denmarkian politics works, or Danish politics, sorry. Denmarkian is so cool, so much cooler than Danish. Anyways, I just don't know, right? But I do know that if you're claiming you want to defend freedom, if you're claiming you want to defend people's religious liberty, if you're claiming you want to defend people's right to have a Republican democratic form of government, then this is not the way you go about it. Banning ideologies, religions, creeds, and books is not the way you go about it. However, with that being said, I would also like to point out the fact that it's a little ridiculous that you can start a riot simply by throwing a Quran in the air, okay? To be perfectly frank, Muslims need to learn to control themselves, right? And I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm talking to a child, but to a certain extent, I kind of feel like I am. Because when something like drawing a cartoon or throwing a book into the air, right, something like that, if that is all it takes to get you to start rioting violently, then quite frankly, you're a child. You're a petulant little brat is what you are. And I don't think that should be controversial, okay? I think it's ridiculous that South Park, on an episode where they are being told they cannot have Muhammad being showed just as a drawing, right? They have Jesus crapping all over people, right? And which I'm fairly certain is actually the point of having that scene with Jesus, is to actually reveal the ridiculousness. They also say, what if we had a show that just constantly ripped on Jews? To which, of course, there's, it's kind of a fourth wall break. It's a little meta, but the point still stands. Why is it that everybody else has to act like grown folk, but Muslims don't? And of course, this is something that everybody on the left doesn't have to do, right? It's not just Muslims. It's also people in the gay community. It's also people in the feminist community, right? It's also people who want black lives to matter and all that kind of stuff, even though black lives do matter in the United States. Just a little fun fact for you. Anyways, and you have all these different groups on the intersectional left who go out of their way to, say, no, any sort of attack against me is incitement. Any sort of attack against me is and it's not even attacks, dude. That's the thing. It's not like drawing a picture of Muhammad is not an attack, right? Throwing the Quran in the air is not an attack. This idea that we have to just pander to the most psychotic elements of our society is absurd, and it's wrong, and it's dangerous, and it's going to get people killed at some point. Either it's going to get people killed because they are emboldened and decide to go out of their way to cause insurrections, or it is going to get people killed because they are emboldened and go out of their way to cause insurrections, which don't end up being particularly effective, which they're doing now, and end up leading others to commit more violent insurrectionary violence in defense of their homeland and ideals, or they will get their power and, of course, end up slaughtering people in mass because that's just the way that their ideologies work. Okay. Either way, not good, very negative, all bad, no bueno, right? I don't know how many different ways I could possibly say it. There's obviously a lot. It's being facetious. But anyways, it's ridiculous. The idea that they get to act like sociopaths and still be, treated like respectable people is ridiculous. Now, does that mean you don't treat Muslims like respectable people? Of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. But it does mean that those particular Muslims who are going to go out of their way to say things like, you can't draw pictures of Muhammad or throw a Quran in the air, or I'm going to riot and throw cobblestones at you. Yeah, those people, they're petulant children, they're brats, and they are not to be respected in civil dialogue. Okay. Now, this next article I want to read because it shows exactly what the left is all about. It shows exactly what our enemies in the culture war are all about. And let me be perfectly clear, they are our enemies, right? I do not want any violence between us, right? That's certainly not what I'm saying in this situation. But there is nothing uniting me with the leftists, okay? I'm not their friend. And I don't want to be their friend. And they don't want to be my friend. And this is shown perfectly in this article here. The Downfall of Alex Jones Shows How the Internet Can Be Saved by Nick Bilton from Vanity Fair, written on April 5th. This filthy cuck over here, Nick Bilton, has just decided that he thinks that the banning of Alex Jones was fantastic. It was wonderful for the internet. And the internet is just so peaceful afterwards. We should do this to more folk. Not like, we didn't tell you this before, right? The whole first they came for Alex Jones, and they came for Tommy Robinson, and Gavin McInnes, and etc. You're going to see it continue to go on. You recently just saw people saying, they going to Tucker Carlson's house and discussing in a forum with Susan Wojcicki the possibility of banning Ben Shapiro, right? So obviously this is, and also, let me also point out, remember when I was reading you the article about how they need to ban Logan Paul and Shane Dawson, people who were not even political. But anyways, how years of dithering, Twitter banned Jones, excuse me, I messed that up real bad. After years of dithering, Twitter banned Jones and Milo Yiannopoulos. The result has been astounding and, dare I say, rather nice. So how come Facebook is still dragging its heels, says this douche. I'm going to write down 3 names and ask you to remember the last time you saw any of them mentioned in a conversation, whether on social media or in real life. Are you ready? Here's the first one. Milo Yiannopoulos. It's been years if you're lucky. Jacob Wool. Weeks at least. Finally, and this one you'll definitely remember, Alex Jones. While we do have a winner, that's only because Jones was in the news the past week after he appeared in a deposition video claiming that he was suffering from a form of psychosis when he told listeners that the Sandy Hook massacre was a hoax. Real quick, just need to point out the lies in this article. That is a very, very, very misleading cobbling of Alex Jones' statement. What Alex Jones said is that his feeling when constantly being lied to by the media was comparable to a form of psychosis, and that he started to believe everything was not true. He didn't say he was actually suffering from a form of psychosis. He didn't say that he legitimately was going to, had an argument for insanity or anything like that. He just said that it got to a point where almost everything that comes out of the media's mouth must be a lie, is what he was thinking, right? Which is a perfectly legitimate thing to say, especially at the time and especially now. The media is full of liars. You see it happening right here with this quote, right? But had that pathetic news not have broken, we might not have heard a squeak about him either. That's because all 3 of these bloviating attention seekers who harness the raw power of the internet to spread hate, fake news, and conspiracy theories, this guy's an idiot, have been banned from Twitter. The result has been astounding and, dare I say, rather nice. Oh, and dare I say, let me go out of my way here to say something that's so immensely controversial. None of my colleagues would even come close to agreeing with it. It's rather nice, actually, that somebody we all disliked is not on the platform anymore. Moron. In recent weeks, tech companies in Silicon Valley have seemed like they've finally started to grow a conscience. Albeit a small one. Twitter, for one, said it's exploring labeling offensive tweets, including those published by the president. Then there was Pinterest, which took the brave, if insanely obvious, step of blocking search results related to vaccination on its platform, snuffing out the entire anti-vaxxer community, and in turn, forcing Facebook, which has always complained about how hard it is to stop volatile conversations, to do something similar. Now Facebook is finally doing something about Nazis and white nationalists by pointing them to nonprofits that help people leave hate groups. All right. So much hot, stinking trash in this sentence here, okay? So thing number 1, the fact that anybody, I don't care what your beliefs are on vaccinations, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, okay? However, they have the right to say whatever they want. That is thing number 1. Thing number 2, they also have the right to reject your vaccinations, because if you are claiming you have the right to force people to have something foreign placed into their body, I'm sorry, you need to be shot. Period. Okay? Not the person advocating, but literally the person coming to the door trying to force is what I mean. You forcing anybody to put something in their body that is foreign to them, you need to be shot. Plain and simple. Okay? There is absolutely no reason whatsoever why people should not have enough bodily autonomy. I know that word is something, or that term is something that is usually used on the left, but nonetheless, there's absolutely no reason why people should not have enough bodily autonomy to say, I do not want such and such a thing, which is foreign, which is not supposed to be in me, okay, to be in me. At that point, what's to stop them from microchips or stamping you? What's to stop them from saying, oh, we want to force you to take out your, I don't know, it's your tonsils maybe because we want to give it to somebody who's more important to us in a political donating thing, which, by the way, that kind of stuff does happen. Governments do go out of their way to, get organs from people they dislike to give them to people who they do like. Okay, look it up in Brazil and Venezuela. This stuff happens. It's usually considered to be criminal, but what's to stop them from doing it if you can just, there you go, right? What's to stop them from saying you can't go get some experimental treatment if you're dying, like they did with Alfie Evans and with Charlie Gard, which is murder at that point, I would like to point out. If you were taking time out of your day to tell somebody you cannot go get a treatment that might save your life, forcing them to die from their disease, you have committed murder, okay? That is just the basic facts of the matter. So, that's the first thing. Second thing here is, this is all the more reason why you need, not want, need, okay? Not should have, need new Pinterest, new Teespring, new Facebook, new YouTube, new all of this kind of stuff, okay? And it would not be that difficult. Literally, leave the platforms. Those of you who have the popularity to cause some sort of a ruckus here, Shane Dawson and Logan Paul, you were just being told that you are going to be, that you should be, rather, censored because you have conspiracy theories and stuff like that. Leave the platform. Go somewhere else. Make a new one, where all of this free speech censorship, all of these MCMs, all of this kind of stuff is no longer a problem, okay? And then what are they going to do? It's not like they can force people to watch videos that aren't there anymore. If you take all your content down off of YouTube and put it somewhere else, then your fans have to go somewhere else to get your content. I feel like that part is just completely obvious. It's just sad, quite frankly, that nobody has taken time out of their day to do this. The only people who have taken time out of their day to do this is people like Gab. Get on Gab, by the way. And it hasn't worked so far. Basically, it got overrun by people who were considered undesirable before anybody actually decided that they were going to take it seriously. And that's always a problem because people like Shane Dawson and PewDiePie and Milo Yiannopoulos back when he was, legitimate, because, the only reason he's not legitimate was not because he was banned. That's the other thing I wanted to say here. It was not because he was banned. He's still on Facebook. He's still on YouTube. Okay, he was banned from Twitter, and that's it. His comments about pedophilia is what caused him to be not taken seriously by other people. So let's just make sure we're being honest, Mr. Liars up here at the Vanity Fair. Such a absolutely perfect name, Vanity Fair. And then, this idea, they say now Facebook is finally doing something about Nazis and white nationalists. Define Nazi and white nationalist, because I don't think you can. Quite frankly, I think you're stupid, and I don't think you're capable of it, okay? You've labeled people like Ben Shapiro a Nazi. Let me tell you something right now that should be completely and totally obvious. It's not disputable. If you think it's disputable, you're a person without brain cells, okay? Let's just be perfectly clear about that. You cannot possibly be Jewish and a Nazi. It is impossible. Let me say that again. You cannot possibly be Jewish and a Nazi. It is impossible. Why? Because Nazism says Jews need to die. Yeah, I know. It's crazy that you can't possibly be something and the thing that's the exact opposite of that thing. I know that's an amazing and baffling concept for all you freaking retards out there. But, not possible. Okay? So no, I don't trust any of these organizations to say, even with groups like that. And quite frankly, Nazis and white nationalists deserve the right to speak as well. That's just a fact. They do. Okay? What you don't deserve the right to do is advocate direct action. Which, if they do that, then of course, ban them. That's fine. And yet, says this moron, the leaders of these special platforms need to do more. A lot more. The internet was designed to be an open space for free expression. Oh my goodness. Where power might, for once in human history, be controlled by people. Go watch any of the early interviews and talks by Jack Dorsey, and you will see him genuinely professing that Twitter was going to connect people and their elected officials in engaging ways. Along the way, however, that power was co-opted by some of the worst people in the world. Not just extremists and trolls and hackers who wish us evil. Trolls and hackers are not the worst people in this world. That's just a stupid statement. But also the CEOs of social platforms like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube who don't seem to think it's their responsibility to police what people say on their platform. It's not. It's not. Give me one logical reason why it is. I'm still waiting for that, other than it offends me. Wah. It makes me sad. He thinks boys aren't yeah, exactly. Boys aren't girls. Yeah. Kind of defeats the insult when you mess it up. But I don't care. Yeah, it's not their job. I'm sorry. And furthermore, I think it's hilarious that you're sitting up here saying the internet was designed to be a space for free expression while you are advocating that people's free expression be taken away. I mean, I kind of wonder sometimes if people actually hear themselves speaking and are just retarded, or if they are liars and just think that they can co-opt the language to mean whatever they want it to, like Orwellian bastards that they are. Is retarded a cuss word? Is bastard a cuss word? I've been trying to keep this cleaner. I don't know if those are cuss words. If you guys think those are cuss words, I guess let me know. Executives liken their products to megaphones sold in stores. You wouldn't ask a factory that produces megaphones to tell people what they can or can't yell into them after they've been purchased. Exactly. But frankly, this is a pathetic cop-out. As much as Silicon Valley luminaries profess to be libertarians, they act more like anarchists. Okay, so that's just false. That is factually incorrect. Okay, the idea of letting people say what it is that they want to say. And as a matter of fact, here, if you think that's true, Mr. Retarded Vanity Fair Actor, what is it, Bilton? I don't know. I don't care what your name is. Okay. If you think that's true, then you show me where Facebook is allowing people to, I don't know, gang rape people, for example, on their platform. Oh, you can't? Damn, it's almost like they have some rules. How about just pornographic scenes? Forget anything about gang rape. How about instances of violence against children? We can continue this all day. Like, honestly, we can continue this all day. That's just a lie. It's factually incorrect. And the fact that you have already listed 3 different people who have been banned from at least one platform, completely depersoned in the case of Alex Jones, proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that you don't even believe that. You're just a tyrannical bastard who wants to see people who are not you taken off the platform so that you can get your way. And eventually you're going to want to put them in cages too, I guarantee it. Matter of fact, some people, like Bill Nye, the supposed science guy, like Bill Nye, the fascist guy, like Bill Nye, the I have actually never done anything in the history of the world in regards to climate change, but I'm still going to tell you everything about climate change because I'm apparently an expert despite being a freaking engineer guy, right? He has gone as far as to say people need to be put in jail who disagree with him. So it's not like this is something new. Or perhaps just capitalists. Mark Zuckerberg didn't change his business model when Russians were using his platform to disrupt the 2016 presidential election, or when the United Nations accused Facebook of playing a determining role in ethnic cleansing in Myanmar because his business model is absurdly profitable. That's a lie. That's factually incorrect. Okay? Facebook has gone out of their way, actually, to change their platform since 2016. They have started labeling groups that are not Russian groups, for example, InfoWars before they banned it, right? They went out of their way to put little bars underneath the Myanmar thing saying, hey, these have instances of violence. Do you want to see it or not? You have to click to uncover the photo. A lot of times they'll take stuff off of the web. So that's just factually incorrect is the first thing, okay? And the second thing is what happened to this whole idea of free space for expression? Why aren't the Russians allowed to use Facebook to say, hey, we should be able to influence the election? Why aren't the Americans allowed to use Facebook to say we should be able to influence the elections in other places? If you have legitimate reasons for that, which I know people do, okay, then perhaps that should be something that the two governments are talking with each other about, not regulating companies, right? To be perfectly frank, I don't think that it had much to do with it as well. I think the idea that the Russians hacked the elections is false. Okay, we recently saw the Mueller report confirm that. It is false. It's not accurate. Okay, it's not true. They did not hack anything. And you know what we're going to see with the Julian Assange case? We're going to see once again that it's false. Because it's not true. Read my lips. No Russian collusion. It didn't happen. Okay? And the Russians were not going out of their way to try and influence elections. This is just a ploy from the anarcho-communist left trying to get you to not support people who are nationalist. This is why Marine Le Pen was apparently the Russians, right? Benjamin Netanyahu was apparently the Russians, even though he's been the prime minister since 2010. And Tommy Robinson is apparently the Russians, right? You want to know some Americans who actually do work for the Russians? Leftists like Larry King and Jesse Ventura. So, wrong. Try again, sir. Anyways. And by the way, Mark Zuckerberg recently just called for the nations of the world to regulate him on the model that the European Union is using. So this person here is literally just a liar. Also, have yet to provide any actual arguments as to why they should not be letting people on their platform. Simply saying, oh, well, you're acting more like an anarchist. Look at this example. Don't you think this should be regulated? No, I don't, actually. Can we move on to some actual arguments as to what the moral or political justification for your position is? Didn't think so. Over the years, numerous executives at Twitter have told me they don't think their platform is to blame for all the hatred spewed online. Correct. Rather, they see Twitter as a mirror to society. Also correct. But this, too, is pathetic. Twitter is a mirror to society in the same way a funhouse mirror distorts your image at a carnival. The problem with Twitter and all of these platforms is that they lack key ingredients that keep society from tearing itself apart. Empathy. That is completely ridiculous. What does it even mean? What is it, those words in that sentence, what is the definition of them? You can't see how much someone is hurt when you only see one side of a conversation. No, I don't really care how much someone is hurt. Okay, that's the thing. I don't give a damn how much you're hurt by somebody's words. Grow up, you little wimp. Let's see, and or when you're the one doing the hurting. Twitter and other social networks inherently do not have empathy built into their platforms. Very few technologies actually do. Add anonymity into the mix and algorithms that amplify the most outrage-inducing content, and you've got a recipe for total societal disintegration. That's not true. That's just simply false. Okay? And I'd like to see some examples of where it wasn't false, actually. I'd like to see some plain examples of it not being false. Because the only social disintegration we have actually seen over the years so far has been from people like you, Vanity Fair, going out of their way to stoke violence and hatred and censorship of independents, conservatives, and liberals who don't agree with your platform of censoring independents and conservatives. In reality, incremental changes aren't going to stop the hate speech and atrocities. There's no such thing as hate speech. And atrocities being broadcast at scale on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. After the Christchurch Mosque Massacre in New Zealand, which was live streamed on Facebook, there was an outcry that these platforms need to fix their problems. Quote, it's unacceptable to treat the internet as an ungoverned space, end quote. Why? Why? Why does the internet need government? If you're going to say, well, because we can't let people commit crimes. Well, crimes are already illegal. Hence the definition of the word crime, you retard. But nonetheless, we continue. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison wrote in a letter after calling for a global crackdown on social media platforms for being unable and often unwilling to police themselves. Well, you know what, Scott Morrison? You're a prick. Oh, that's Scott. He's a dick. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, the communist scum, echoed the same concern, saying, quote, we cannot simply sit back and accept that these platforms just exist and that what is said on them is not the responsibility of the place where they are published. It is not! It is not in any way, shape, or form the responsibility of the platform. That is stupid. It is stupid. Okay? It is not the responsibility of the earth that Nazis live on it. Retarded. Nonsense. Garbage. Insert any other word you want to put in there. They are the publisher. No, they are not. They are a platform. Try again. Learn what the definition of the word publisher is. In fact, since apparently, Miss Ardern, you're completely retarded, we're going to go and show the word here and compare it to the word publisher, right? Show the word platform, compare it to the word publisher. So, platform definition. Oh, come on. The definition of a platform. You can have either a raised level surface on which people or things can stand. A raised floor or stage used by public speakers or performers that can be seen by their audience. A raised structure along the side of a railroad track where passengers get on and off a train station. The declared policy of a political party or a shoe with very thick sole. The one that most relevant to our discussion here today would be a raised floor or stage used by public speakers or performers so that they can be seen by their audience. It is nothing more than something to stand on so that you can give out your ideas. Now, let's look at a publisher. A person or company that prepares and issues books, journals, music, or other works for sale. You show me where the company of Facebook prepared or issued books about InfoWars, or journals about InfoWars, or music about InfoWars, or any other works about InfoWars for sale. Show me any place that that's happened. If you can't, you're a lying scumbag. Okay? And I know you can't, and I know you're a lying scumbag, so don't even try. It's a completely rhetorical question. All right. Where did we leave off here? It cannot be a case of all profit, no responsibility, says this moron. Which is completely incorrect. That is exactly what it can be. Last summer, Facebook banned several pages involving Jones and InfoWars, and in February updated its policy so that it could ban nearly 24 more. But at least some Jones-related pages are still up. So is the personal page for Yiannopoulos, who responded to the Christchurch attack by branding Islam barbaric and alien. Australia immediately banned Yiannopoulos. Why didn't Facebook? Because they shouldn't have to. You have every right to say that. You have every right to say that. There is absolutely no reason why you don't have a right to say that. Okay? And if a company thinks you don't have a right to say that, then that company, quite frankly, should not exist. Now, I'm not saying the government should necessarily go out of its way to say that company cannot exist. But we, the people, should not be using that company. In many instances, it appears these decisions are being made with only profit in mind, or free speech, but I know that's a completely foreign concept to you. As an infuriating Bloomberg report noted this week, executives at YouTube have ignored warnings for years about the toxic videos being shared on video platforms, afraid that if they were going to police them, that engagement would go down. As they should be. They're good, proper capitalists. Can you imagine making those kinds of decisions at night and then sleeping soundly? Yes, actually. And so can everyone who has brain cells. I sure can't. Well, see previous comment. If the people who run tech companies ran our society, America would look more like a 365-day version of The Purge. False! False. Incorrect. There are rules on Facebook. You know there are rules on Facebook. You're just being, what's the word? Deceptive. Yes. Manipulative. Yes. A liar. Yes. In order to try and get your political agenda to pass. The past couple of years have made it clear that the internet is not the utopia scientists once thought they were building. There are narcissistic, evil, self-righteous sociopaths among us, obviously. Apparently lots of them, obviously, who see a camera and a screen or an empty box where you can type in text and are willing to do anything to get countless eyeballs looking their way, irrelevant of how many people might get hurt as a result. Yiannopoulos has hurt no one. Jones has hurt no one. Period. Okay? The families at Sandy Hook who are saying Jones hurt them are liars. 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 Nothing that Alex Jones has done has ever hurt them. They are trying to get money because of an agenda. Okay? And I'm not afraid to say that. Not willing to do anything to get countless eyeballs looking their way, irrelevant of how many people they might hurt as a result. Hate is dispersed everywhere, all the time, from the ugly comments people leave on news articles they disagree with to the 1,000 times. So you shouldn't be able to leave ugly comments on news articles you disagree with. Yeah, no, you definitely agree with free speech, right? They disagree with to the 1,000th times a second that people bicker on Twitter. But more and more, it's also breaking through into the real world where sociopaths live stream mass shootings or other barbaric acts. Yeah, and you know what? The videos are immediately taken down because that was always a crime and it was always not permittable by the community standards of Facebook and YouTube. So what is your point? For so long, these tech platforms have either played dumb, like they don't have the resources to solve these problems, or argued it's not their place to step in. But the eradication of the most vile purveyors of digital slime, like Alex Jones and Milo Yiannopoulos, who have all but vanished from the public zeitgeist with, like virulent diseases through the Middle Ages, illustrates that tech platforms have more power than they care to admit to help the internet and in turn society become a better place. This is the idea that they have, okay? They want us to be banned for saying anything that they disagree with at all, right? And there's an article, or not an article, a paragraph I actually missed here. I was wondering where this was. What would seem obvious and even empathetic would be for these platforms to take the proactive steps to fix the problem. Instead, they tragically choose not to, sometimes justifying their inaction as a defense of free speech. But let's be blunt, this isn't about the First Amendment. I'm sorry, but if you can't ban someone like Alex Jones or Milo Yiannopoulos from your platform because they don't violate the terms of service, then maybe your terms of service are an utter joke. So notice he says, this isn't about free speech, but then goes on to say, if you can't ban somebody based off of what your criteria is, then maybe your criteria is a joke. So, put the pieces together for yourself. If free speech and the First Amendment say that you can't ban people like Alex Jones and Milo Yiannopoulos, then according to Vanity Fair, the First Amendment and freedom of speech are an utter joke. That is the position of the left. If you vote for the left, if you support the left in any way, that is what you're supporting. Period. That is the point in society that we are at right now. Okay? And you need to understand that. Because if you don't understand that, we are all going to suffer for it. There won't be a left. There won't be a right. There will be the establishment, the man, whatever you want to call it, right? And it's going to be their views and their views alone. And this is why people who are on the left, like Jimmy Dore, like Tim Pool, like Joe Rogan, like Dave Rubin, like Brett Weinstein and Eric Weinstein and Jordan Peterson, and etc., are making the exact same case I am right now. The left has lost its mind. Okay. Unfortunately, they don't see that their ideology leads directly to that losing of your mind. I hope one day we can discuss that, but, nonetheless. How difficult is it to add an amendment that says we don't allow people on our platform who harass the victims of a mass shooting? Show me where Alex Jones did that. Show me any place where that happened. Show me where Milo Yiannopoulos did that. Anywhere. Show me where that happened. You can't because it's false. It's not true. And by the way, watch all 3 hours of the Alex Jones deposition. You won't find that claim made because it's not correct. Okay? It's false. It's a lie. L-I-E. Opposite of the truth. And this is what the left wants. And this Vanity Fair article here, okay, written by this Nick Bilton, or Hilton, whatever his name is. I think it's Bilton. Yeah. This moron, this shill, this dog, right? Going out of their way to try and take people's freedom is completely ridiculous. It's completely insane. It is going to lead to violence because if people cannot speak peacefully, they will speak with the point of a gun. It's going to happen, okay? And I'm not saying that as a threat. I'm saying that as somebody who understands humanity, okay? If you are not going to let people have their ideologies, if you're not going to let people have their freedom of speech, their freedom of religion, their right to own guns, the ability to go out and participate in the political process, they will respond with violence. Okay? And if you couple that with constant lies from the media, with constant deplatforming, with constant attacks in the real world physically by people who want to either assassinate people like Congressman Scalise, or people who want to beat people over the head with bike locks like Antifa, right? Or any of these other situations, if you keep justifying that on top of all this other stuff, the violent reaction will come sooner than later, okay? And at this point, it's almost inevitable. If we don't get fast, new society built up, okay? Completely new. We need new banks, we need new platforms, we need new all of it, because all of these companies are run by disgusting leftists who want to take away people's freedom. If we don't create a society where both left and right can live freely, okay, in place of this dying one, here very soon, as in now, as in yesterday, as in maybe like 3 decades ago, then we're going to lose this country for the rest of our lives. And once we lose this country, there won't be another country like this one. There won't, okay? It's just not going to happen. We got lucky in the fact that we had this one in the first place. But there's nowhere else to run to. You can't go to Alaska. There's people in Alaska. You can't go to Antarctica because eventually there's going to be people there too. Right? I mean, unless you're planning on leaving the planet, this is the last place that you've got. And you see examples of this moronic leftist agenda trying to censor people's speech in the fact that, Ocasio-Cortez recently said that going after Ilhan Omar for saying some people did something about 9/11, which I do think was blown way out of proportion, to be perfectly frank with you. It's obviously dismissive, but what do you expect from somebody who's going to speak at CARE? I mean, obviously, this shouldn't be shocking to anyone, but nonetheless, people like Ocasio-Cortez were saying that this is incitement to violence. That is wrong. Saying that speech is incitement to violence will eventually incite people to violence, okay? Not because of the speech itself, but because of the policies that come from it. And that's just the way it is. That is the way it always will be. If you don't want a civil war, then don't be violent. If you don't want a civil war, then don't censor people's speech. If you don't want a civil war, then don't lie about people saying they're racist or misogynist or what have you when they're not, okay? Don't say that criticizing a politician who people don't like is incitement to violence when it's not. That's factually false. And if you believe that, then I'm sorry, I don't know what to do for you. But if you don't believe that, if you're using this as nothing more than a ploy to make your agenda go further or to keep yourself in power, then I just hope you know, and this is not a threat, this is not something that is coming from me personally, I wish to avoid this, I'm not somebody who would want to lead this, etc., okay? But you will eventually be on the chopping block. You will. And so will your constituents. And unfortunately, so will the people who disagree with you as well. Because the rain falls on the just and the unjust alike. When a civil war strikes this country, the left is not the one being punished. The right is not the one being punished. The country is the one being punished. Okay? And that is something that we need to understand. Because we're getting dangerously close to having nothing in common anymore. I mean, what happens if we don't get a new Twitter where everybody can speak and it ends up being all the lefties on Twitter and all the righties on Gab? And they're literally not even on the same websites. They're just not talking to each other at all, period. Right? What happens if you have people regulating speech from the top down, right, and people on the right can't speak, and then they're being attacked by people on the left, and they show up with guns, and then the other people show up with guns, and they start shooting each other, and then the National Guard has to be sent in, and then once it turns out the National Guard can't handle 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 different terrorist groups at the same time, they put it in the military, you get martial law, you have a 7-year civil war like Syria that seems like it's never going to end, right? What happens at that point? What are you going to do? Are you going to continue, oh yeah, well, you know, should have not called men women or whatever, right? Or are you going to realize that all of this is stupid and that we have a right to have free speech and that maybe going down the route of censorship is not the brightest of ideas? I would hope it'd be the latter. But nonetheless, got a brief article here I want to read as our last one. From InfoWars, this is Grace Carr, who's actually writing from the Daily Caller News Foundation, so nice to see them working with each other. State legislature passes a bill mandating physicians to provide care for babies who survive an abortion, because apparently that's something that's controversial in our modern day. I know that that is completely insane to think that that is something that is actually controversial, but it is. You know, just like the idea that men aren't women is controversial, but whatever. North Carolina legislature passed a bill Tuesday seeking to spell out and mandate physicians provide care to babies who survive abortion. The state Senate first passed the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act, or SB 359, on Monday. The House passed the bill in a 65-46 vote today, or Tuesday rather, according to the News and Observer. Quote, an infant born alive after an abortion or within a hospital, clinic, or other facility is the same claim to the protection of the law that would arise for any newborn or any person who comes to a hospital, clinic, or other facility for screening and treatment, or otherwise becomes a patient with its care, according to the legislation. Physicians who violate the bill will be charged with a Class D felony and fined up to $250,000. I wish there would have been some prison sentences, a little bit harsher than that, but that's fine. North Carolina's American Civil Liberties Union, otherwise known as the American Communist Lawyers Union, or, sorry, I guess that's just something that it's only known of in, you know, circles that know how to think about things. I'm just kidding. Anyways, reacted to the bill's passage immediately and sent Democratic Governor Roy Cooper a letter urging him to veto the legislation. The bill would, quote, interfere with patient-provider relationships, target health care providers, and mislead the public about safe, legal abortion care. End quote, according to the letter. How is it that people have gotten it in their mind that not killing alive children... well, actually, never mind. Let me just say, I know the answer to that question. Once we decided it was okay to kill children in the first place, then obviously the logical conclusion was that it was eventually going to become legal to kill born children. And you saw this in the rights arguments for the last, I don't know, when Roe v. Wade happened, 35 years, 45 years, right? When we would say, well, then what's to stop you from a 28-year-old baby, or a 3-year-old baby, or a 10-year-old baby, or somebody who's, on, or in a coma or whatever, right? And just going down the line. And honestly, the left's just becoming more honest with itself when it says these completely insane things. But doesn't make it any less insane, right? Quote, this extreme anti-abortion bill shamelessly inserts political ideology into the practice of medicine, replacing healthcare providers' best judgment with that of politicians, end quote. North Carolina ACLU Senior Policy Counsel Susanna Birdsong said. The governor's spokesman, Ford Porter, also criticized the bill, saying in a statement, quote, this unnecessary legislation would criminalize doctors for a practice that simply does not exist. If it doesn't exist, then why do you care about it? Right? If it doesn't exist, then who cares if a bill is passed about it? Nobody's going to get arrested for something if it doesn't happen. Right? Clearly, you know it exists. Clearly, you know that we've all seen the text from people like, Maria Tran, right? And, no, that's a different person. That's the person in Star Wars. Something Tran, Representative Tran from Virginia. And also Governor Northam, and et cetera, right? So you know this exists. But another way. And anyway, quote, laws already exist to protect newborn babies, and legislators should instead be focused, or legislators rather, should be focused on other issues like expanding healthcare to help children thrive. And of course, this has always turned into, you should let me kill my child, otherwise you obviously don't, or you should pay for all my child's healthcare, otherwise you should let me kill my child because you clearly don't care about children. One of the stupidest things that anybody's ever come up with, but nonetheless, I don't know. I mean, it's not like they're going, that is always going to be lost on them, I think. I don't think they're ever going to realize what they're doing. But nonetheless, we continue. Republican Representative Sarah Stevens applauded the bill's passage. The Observer reported, quote, nurses, doctors, if you see something, you have a duty to report, and that's a big part of this bill, end quote, Stevens said. The Born Alive bill's passage comes after the U.S. District Judge William Osteen struck down in late March a ban on abortions after 20 weeks, ruling that a week or event-specific ban is not constitutional. Reuters reported. I would like somebody to explain to me the constitutionality behind the legality of abortion. Because, quite frankly, it's just a hogwash argument. Okay, I've read the Constitution. It says absolutely nothing about your right to medical practices that terminate the life of another. It says absolutely nothing to, actually doesn't even say anything about your right to medical practice, which I do think you have the right to get, medical practice done on you if it's legitimate medical practice. But it's just false. It's just incorrect, right? And quite frankly, I think that the states should just tell the government to go to hell. We're just not going to enforce your bills here. We're going to make abortion illegal. And if you want to do something about it, then I guess you can come down here and try and do something about it. Legal abortions may occur to the point of viability as determined by a preceding physician under Osteen's ruling. South Carolina nearly passed a law banning all abortions except those performed in the cases of rape, incest, and to save a mother's life, but the bill died in the state Senate. That sucks. A number of states have passed bills restricting abortion access. Arkansas, North Dakota, Iowa, Mississippi, and Kentucky have proposed bills or enacted laws outlawing abortion in the presence of a fetal heartbeat. Many of the abortion bans, however, have remained ineffective following court orders prohibiting enforcement, Cleveland.com reported. See, this is just an example of judicial tyranny. Do it anyways, okay? Unless they can provide you with a legitimate constitutional reason, right? And Roe v. Wade being ruled in favor of the abortion party is not a legitimate constitutional reason. Okay, the Supreme Court doesn't just get to decide things. They need to have legitimate basis from the Constitution, legitimate precedent from judges who were accurately interpreting the Constitution in order to make rulings, okay? But nonetheless, wanted to read that to you because it kind of was showing both, how we are, on one end, we're doing well in proposing a lot of these anti-death bills, but on another end, I don't know. It seems like it's always one step forward and two steps back. But nonetheless, if you like this video, please do like and share. This is, of course, our second video that is going to be up on YouTube.
We are going to have new episodes of the Watchdog every Wednesday on YouTube. Obviously, if you want to catch our weekly show, you're going to have to go to our Facebook page. But every Wednesday, at least, we're going to have our Watchdogs on YouTube. And, of course, this weekend, you can catch Unapologetics. Obviously, like your support, critics, concerns, anything like that. Put that in the bottom there. Missing something. Yeah, Gab. Get on Gab. Go to my Gab, ACP Official, also known as C.Jay Cox. Follow me on Gab. Twitter, Terrestrial Earthbird. Follow me there as well, as much as I hate to say it, right? As much as I hate Twitter, unfortunately. Gab isn't very popular at the moment, and I don't have enough popularity to cause any problems on it. Obviously, YouTube, TheCynicogue, and Cynic Thought on Instagram. Thanks a lot. Have a great rest of your day, and shalom.